All right, it's 3 o'clock, August 22nd, and I'm calling to order this special session of the Knox County Beer Board. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Lundy, Commissioner Durrett,
Here.
Commissioner Oster, Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Schoolmaker,
Here.
Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Beeler, Commissioner Daly, Commissioner Jay, Commissioner Frazier.
Present.
Thank you. 9 out of 11. We do have a quorum. If everyone will stand, please. Director Book, if you'd lead us in the pledge.
Stand and give proper salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Why we are here today. The purpose of this meeting is to hear proof and arguments regarding what sanctions, if any, are to be placed upon the beer license of the beer holder of the business known as El Tequila Bar and Grill, located at 7002 Maynardville Pike, Knoxville, 37918. Under Section 4-8H of the Knox County Beer Ordinance, the Beer Board may revoke, suspend, or impose a civil penalty that for any violation of or provision of the chapter, or whenever it shall satisfactorily appear that premises of any person, firm, or corporation holding a permit under the Beer Board permit are being maintained and operated in such a manner as to be detrimental to the public health, safety, or morals. And in just a moment, I'll turn this meeting over to Director Book, but to make sure everyone has the handouts, in addition to the agenda that was given to us, everyone should have a packet, the first page being Knox County Sheriff's Department, and then the second one begins Knox County Beer Board. And this is actually the history of everything the Beer Board has done since we first met them for the last 6 months. So if everyone has those papers, Director Book, I'll turn this over to you.
Everyone who is going to testify before this beer board, please stand. Raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you and each of you swear to give testimony today before this beer board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay. You may be seated. I'm going to describe for you the way this hearing is going to go. It's going to be somewhat like a courtroom hearing, although this is not a court case. It's a due process hearing to which the business owner is given all rights under due process to have his case heard, as well as the Beer Board of Knox County is equally entitled to put forth its case. So here is a procedure. We've already had a statement of the case from the chairman. She said what it's about. We'll start off with the sheriff, Lieutenant Walker, will get up and testify as to the record of violations and complaints against the business. He already has submitted to the board, and it's of record now, and also a copy to the attorney for El Tequila, the documents, the citations, and his summary, which he's going to testify to by voice today. After he has done that, any one of the members of this board can ask Lieutenant Walker any questions. You, the board, are serving as a quasi-judicial function. You make the decision, not me. I don't advise you on what to say or do or not do. You're the judge and the jury. So you get to ask the questions of everybody who's going to be a witness. After that, the attorney for El Tequila is going to have his shot at Lieutenant Walker, and he can ask Lieutenant Walker whatever questions he wants on cross-examination. Then, like in a courtroom, if there's follow-up questions from this board to Lieutenant Walker, they call it rebuttal, et cetera, we'll go through that We will give the business every opportunity to be heard and have their attorney argue whatever. After that, after the case has been concluded on behalf of Knox County, then the business can call its witnesses, whoever they want, however they want, and start questioning them. Once he has questioned, that's Scott, has questioned any of his witnesses, then this board will have the opportunity to cross-examine those witnesses, just like in a courtroom. When all of that has been done, then this beer board will decide, once all the proof is in, can argue, debate, make motion, whatever, and do whatever this beer board thinks is in the best interest of Knox County. So that's the way it's going to be. So we'll start off with Lieutenant Walker. You could take the podium and the stand. State your name and your position with Knox County.
Tom Walker. I'm a lieutenant with the Knox County Sheriff's Office Environmental Crimes Unit.
All right, and have you, through the time period in your report, been in front of the beer board with regard to complaints and allegations and violations by El Tequila?
Yes, I have.
All right, if you would proceed then with what's in the record, and we have given that same record and what you're going to testify from to counsel for El Tequila.
Yes, sir. It was first reported that on November 1st of 2022 at approximately 11:45, that's 23:45. I wrote military time, I apologize. A report, and it gives a report number, documented a large fight where several officers had to respond. And it basically took most of the night shift to respond to that large riot that they had in the parking lot.
I don't want to just do this at one time. Obviously, I'd like it to be imposed, because we're reporting this as a continuing objection, albeit I have all the faith in the world in Lieutenant Walker's ability to read reports and things of that nature. I think he hit it on the head early on. So I just want to put this objection on the record, in that this is serving as a quasi-judicial body. That being said, that you're making decisions relative to substantive rights. And the buzzword that was used there was due process. And due process of law requires certain things. That being said, thus, when we have testimony, and at this point in time, albeit I again have faith in Lieutenant Walker's ability to summarize reports, and I take this as no disparagement toward him, he was not the investigating officer relative to these reports, and that they would be best served by having the individual officers that were there. Otherwise, just like in a criminal case or in any type of case in which there is a substantive right deprived, it deprives effectively El Tequila through their counsel of the ability to confront and or cross-examine. We have certain requirements under the law, record you correct me if I'm wrong relative to it. That's why reports generally in courts of law, they're not admissible, because you cannot basically cross-examine a document, okay? And so under that set of circumstances, if we're going to conduct this as a due process hearing, then obviously I would object to the testimony as far as in the summary form of Lieutenant Walker. I'm not going to pop up and down each time. I would just like it to be recognized as a continuing objection, again, not directed at him personally, but his summary with regards to what are alleged to be complaints.
Your continuing objection is noted. I would point out that as in most administrative hearings, whether it be here or even in the state, the strict rules of hearsay and that are not necessarily followed. So your objection is noted as a continuing objection.
I would agree, and likewise too, when we address this as a quasi-judicial hearing or a quasi-due process hearing relative to it, I'm not sure if you're aware, but your own rules don't even provide for the issuance of subpoenas. You understand that as a party that is aggrieved, unless someone wants to agree to be here, that the aggrieved party has no ability to subpoena someone, even in civil court. Okay, down the hall on the far end of the building, we have the ability and the right to subpoena witnesses and to compel them to be here. And that is at the very basis of due process. So with that also interposed as an objection, we'll get to this at the end with regards to the argument, but I think it's something that everybody needs to consider and be aware when we're looking at the way the beer board, not as a membership, but the way it is currently constructed mechanically to work.
Objection is noted.
Okay. So during the report of, there was the number was 2210-010056. Basically documented there was a fight. Several officers from the night shift had to respond to the scene to break up the fight in a parking lot. There were 3 arrests made for public intoxication. One suspect threatened an employee by stating he was about to pop off and making a gun gesture with his hand. Later on that night, it was actually the next day after midnight at 1:03 in the morning, another report was done where 4 arrests were made for public intoxication. That had left multiple people being arrested that night. That was documented in report 2210-020061. And then even later on that night at 3:04 in the morning, documented report 2210-020069, the owner of El Tequila assaulted the victim, Ernesto Jarvez, for back wages. There was a report about an assault. To my knowledge, there were no charges filed on that, and there was just a report made. Another report was done, a more detailed report concerning all the events from the night before. It was 2210-020118. Basically documenting that there was the same fight, that there were multiple people arrested. It also documented that there were several small children present inside the bar that were being pushed out, some in strollers at 2 o'clock in the morning. The fact that there were small children in the bar that late at night was concerning to the officers enough to where they felt they had to do another report to document the body cam footage that they went back and reviewed. It didn't dawn on them at the time because they were dealing with the fights and making the arrest. But when they went and reviewed their body camera, they saw that were children being pushed out in strollers and everything. That's why they did another report to document those facts a little further. Then on November 14th at 11:27 at night, report 2210-140971 documented the former head of security, a guy named Eric Owens, attempted to come back to work. Apparently there had been some negotiations, according to the report, that he had been removed from his position because he was drinking on the job. He was allowed to come back, but showed up to work that night intoxicated. The head of security at the time, Mr. Little, allowed him to stay on the premise and go into the bar and drink. At that point, Mr. Owens became even more intoxicated and slapped a water bottle out of Mr. Little's hand, at which point Mr. Little had to punch him in the face in self-defense, and there was a report done on that. To my knowledge, there were no charges filed on that one either. They both declined to press charges at that point, but a documented report was done. On 2014, we had 2 911 calls come in from El Tequila from a male named Eric. You'll see it in your 911 printouts. There wasn't a report generated. He just called 911 twice, saying that there was a male that was assaulting him inside the bar. And Rural Metro ambulance did respond. He had some cuts to his face. He was treated for the injuries to his face on scene. He was not transported to the hospital. And after he got treated, he refused to make a report or even to prosecute the case further. But it was a call that our officers had to go on. On December 19th, I didn't include the report in your package. I did put the investigating officers' notes in there and the 911 call sheet so that you would know that it actually did happen. But the report number was 22-12-19-14-27, came in on December 19th at 8 o'clock at night. And basically it was a mother of a 16-year-old victim that claimed that she had been drinking inside El Tequila, had gotten intoxicated, was then fondled inside the bar by a patron. She went outside to separate herself. Apparently the patron followed her out, coaxed her into a car, and then raped her. She did not report this. She reported it to her brother almost immediately, according to the report in the officer's notes, but did not report it to her mom for 3 weeks. And at that point, forensic evidence was gone. Our detective did go to the bar and request to check the security video. They do have cameras up and video. And I was told that there was no video footage that went back that far to the point when the the actual rape took place, supposedly. Again, no charges were filed. The only concern I had with that was that the owner of El Tequila said that they were never aware of this during their testimony at one of the hearings. And the officer's notes would indicate that that is not correct, that they were involved. They did know that they were asked for video and the reason for the request for the video. Whether or not a rape took place, we have no way of knowing. Whether or not she was actually in the bar, again, we have no way of knowing. We don't have any video footage, but the fact that a juvenile might have been in the bar drinking in the first place was a little concerning. February 21st, after all this, the beer board suspended the El Tequila beer permit for 30 days. That was on February 21st. On February 25th at 12:30 at night, 0035, report number 2302251827 documented the arrest of an adult Hispanic male and a Hispanic juvenile male that were driving doing donuts in the parking lot with other people in the apartment or in the parking lot. Driving in a reckless manner, they were pulled over by an officer. Several empty beer cans were found inside the car. The adult male said that he had been drinking inside the establishment and that there were several drunk people already inside the bar, still inside the bar. And this happened 4 days after their beer permit was suspended. Again, don't know if he brought it with him or if it was inside the bar. We have no way of knowing. I can only report the facts of how they reported. The officer made the arrest for driving without a license. Both of them were cited for driving without a license on misdemeanor site, and the car was towed. April 17th, again, after this a hearing before the beer board, their license, the beer permit was suspended for another 60 days. On May the 7th, 2023 at 02:52 in the morning, report 2305070448 documented another large fight in the bar that was pushed out into the parking lot by the security staff. Darwin, and I'll butcher the last name, Valdez, retrieved a handgun from his vehicle and shot several rounds up into the air in the middle of a crowd. Again, nobody was hit, nobody was hurt. He was arrested and charged. Mr. Little was actually a witness, actually pointed him out to our responding officers. So most of our night shift on that day was also called to the scene to secure it, make sure we didn't have any wounded people out there, search the scene, found the gun, and he was arrested and charged with reckless endangerment. And I believe he was prosecuted all the way through that. That was an end of the case. May the 9th, 2 days later, report 2305090665 documented a simple assault. Two females got into a fight inside El Tequila. The victim was later prosecuted. The victim refused to prosecute. The one female refused to prosecute the other one after the police report was done. But again, it took 4 of our officers. You'll see the 911 call sheet where they actually send 2 officers and our partners to this bar now, just because of the call volume and the violence that we've seen in the past. So just officer safety, they end up sending multiple officers to every call now. June 2023, the beer board again suspended the beer permit until today's date. June the 25th, 5 days later at 12:30 at night, report number 2306251557 documented a disturbance. Several individuals suspected of drinking while underage were asked to leave by security. Suspects refused to leave and demanded to have their cover charge back. This resulted in police being called. Again, we sent multiple officers. The suspects ended up leaving without an incident. There was no arrests made, but once the police got there, they did calm down and actually leave. So the report was done to document it. July the 9th, 2023 at 1:07 in the morning, report number 2307090530 documented another disturbance at El Tequila, where 4 very intoxicated suspects refused to leave the bar. Security called the police. We arrived, again, multiple officers. The suspects had left prior to the officers actually arriving. I talked to the officers personally that were responding that night, and they said they had a high call volume and they were delayed in getting there. So there was a delay between security calling and our officers getting there, that the suspects left before our officers got there, but they did a report documenting it. In the roughly 16 months that El Tequila's been open, they've had 20 complaints for loud music. Again, I attached the 911 call sheets showing all 20 of the complaints of loud music. There have been 12 criminal complaints where reports were done, 2 safety complaints, overcrowding, 7 fire alarms that have all come into the 911 center since April of 2022, and I've added all those call sheets. The part where we're concerned about their liquor license and beer license is that they, according to the state ABC board, and I attached the liquor by the drink.
Respectfully,
Yeah.
the law is what the law is.
Yep.
As far as any interpretation of the law by the lieutenant governor, I don't think that's appropriate. If information's been submitted, obviously that would be over my objection with regards to it, basically having the law interpreted for the beer board.
I don't think he's interpreting it. I think he's just reading it.
Yes, sir.
Got it. But it doesn't work for the ABC. And so that being said, it's a layperson basically interpreting the law relative to it, and he's mistaken with regards to the license that the establishment has.
Okay, objections noted. I don't think he's interpreting though.
I submitted evidentiary pictures that were taken from their surveillance footage that they put on their website. The ABC board says that they have a beer permit that's under a license for restaurants. And part of that is that they have to be open 3 consecutive days or 3 days a week. By their own website, they're only open 2 days a week for limited hours from 10 at night until 3 in the morning. And then the other one says 10 at night till 12. Every picture that I was able to pull off their website shows the tables that were set up to try and abide by the law that you have to have tables and seating for 40 people or more in a separate area. Every one of the pictures shows people sitting at the tables during the night with absolutely no food, and it's multiple days. There's no visible food being served during the time of operation, which would limit my belief that they are actually receiving 50% of their income due to food, which is a requirement for their liquor license. It was the reason I kind of documented that, investigated that a little bit, was to show that my belief is that they're not operating legally for a beer permit, much less an ABC license.
Ms. Hoster.
Can you tell me, is it typical for 2 cars to go out on a call? Or, I mean, I know a couple of these nights you said it was all the night shift, but is it typical when they go out, they're going to have 2 cars that go out?
It depends on the type of call. Like a domestic it demands 2 cars. At least 2 officers will respond on a domestic. Any call that's in progress, burglary, robbery, any call of violence, 2 officers will respond. Loud music, it's usually 1 officer going to tell them, hey, turn it down. But because of the ongoing issues, the officer safety mandate, because of the violence that we've seen at this place, that we will send 2 or more, depending on the call.
So we're taking 2 or more officers off the street for emergencies from November 1st, 2022 to July 9th, 2023?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schoonmaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The November 1st, 2022 situation and the May 7th of 2023, in both incidences, did all of the night shift employees with the Knox County Sheriff's Department descend on that location?
If they weren't on a priority 1 call, which is a call of violence, then yes, they called in the entire shift.
Okay, so both incidents are fairly similar.
Yes.
In circumstances. Okay. And I believe regarding Tennessee alcohol beverage control, at a previous beer board meeting, we were informed that they were not meeting their percentage of food sales to liquor sales, and that they had been fined $2,500. Is that?
I
To
don't
my-
think that was, I think they were fined because of the fights. I don't think it was in violation of the food. That hadn't been investigated at that point. That's what spurred me to kind of dig into that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but I believe that they were cited for running an establishment that had ongoing issues. I think something along that line.
Okay.
But it was not the food.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. I do have one question regarding the June 25th incident. It says that individuals suspected of drinking while underage were asked to leave
Yes.
and that the suspects left after several officers showed up without incident. Did those officers, in fact, ask them for their ID?
There was a language barrier, and none of them said they had one. The officers couldn't prove one way or the other at that point, so they.
So we don't know if they were, in fact, underage or not.
We do not. The way the call came in from the head of security of El Tequila was that he said that they were underage, and that's why the officers responded. Is that he suspected they were underage. That's why they were being asked to leave.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lieutenant Walker, on November 2nd, 2022, the report documented small children were present.
Yes.
Is that indicating that the officers saw the children, or where does that come from?
It came off their body cameras. I do have the video available.
Okay, so you saw that on the
Yes.
body? Okay. And on December 19, 2022, on the rape charges.
Yes.
That was a possible rape. There was no charges that were filed.
Correct. Yeah, we lost all forensic evidence when she didn't report it immediately. And there was no way, we had no video, no witnesses, no forensic evidence at that point. So the case was basically investigated and enclosed for lack of evidence.
And then on November 14, 2022, where the victim required an ambulance, but he refused a report.
Yes.
So there was no charges filed on that.
No. If we don't have a victim, we can't file charges.
And on May 9th, 2023, the assault, about 2 females, there were no charges filed on that.
No.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question. So there would not be charges filed because why?
The victim didn't want to prosecute. The officers
So
do a
if there's no
report.
victim, then
Yeah.
there's no charges.
Correct. Yeah, we cannot force people to file charges. If they want to report so they can think about it and maybe charge later, we're required to do a police report. And then if they want to press charges immediately, then we will make the arrest and transport the suspect to jail. But if they say, I want to think about it, I'll call a detective later. We give them a case card with the police report number. The police report is filed, and they have up to 11 months, 29 days to file their charges on a misdemeanor. They have a little longer during a felony.
So when a police report is made, though, that is in fact a legal document that becomes a part of the permanent record.
Yes, ma'am. It's always in our
Police
system.
report is-
Yes. It is a reported crime. It's whether or not it's prosecuted or not.
Are there any other questions, comments? Lieutenant Walker? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lieutenant Walker, I'm trying to go through here. How many of any of these calls to 911 generated by El Tequila?
Several of them were the security called about the fights. They actually reported most of them.
And so they know since they generated the E911 calls, there's no doubt there were fights there because they called it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Even if nobody was prosecuted or arrested or whatever,
Yes.
it was still an issue.
Yeah. 911 documents who the caller is and where they're from. So the several of the fights that were reported that the fighter was in a parking lot were called in by the security of El Tequila, and in one case he did point out the suspect a shot into the air. So they are the ones generating the reports by reporting the incidents inside the place.
I guess it might be an AG question or whatever, but to me, this is a nuisance business that should be looked at. That's not for me to decide or whatever. That would be for the AG to decide. We're just here for one issue today.
Yes.
How many establishments can you remember that you've had this type of situation at here in Knox County?
With these type of violent incidents, this is the only one I've had to deal with in the county. Hatmaker's Bar, we helped investigate with, that was a partner one with KPD, and that was just because it was gang related, and we had the gang files on most of the suspects on that case. I've had one other bar that's out in the Carnes area called Smash Mouth. It's just loud music calls. It's a ongoing loud music complaint, and basically, and parking issues. We put up signs, got that parking issue mostly covered. And I went out a couple of times with a sound meter and cited the owner a couple of times. And he actually went out and bought his own sound meter. And I actually went and showed him how to work it so he could work his own sound monitoring system. And I haven't had a call back since. So.
No fights, no anything like that?
No, it's mostly loud music. And then the one case, it was a partnership with KPD's investigation.
And how long have you been in your profession?
29 years.
And in 29 years, this is the only one that really has got to the situation to where
it is the only one I've worked. Yes.
Okay, that you've worked. Okay. The statement was made, and I just want to. I'll confirm it later if I need to. But seems like if there's a fight inside the bar, the policy is to push them out the door, get them in the parking lot.
That's where we find everybody when we get there. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Mr. J.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, I don't know, this may be a question for either the law department or for yourself. Can you help us understand the difference between an establishment that is restaurant and drink and entertainment versus just purely like a music venue that also may serve drinks?
I'm going to leave that to a lawyer. That's a legal question that I don't think I'm qualified to answer that.
Are there different licenses or different operational guidelines?
Well, the main guideline for being in a restaurant, I mean, we've got restaurants that sell on the premises, off premises, or both. And that's when you issue a permit, it's based on one of those applications. And if it's on premises, they've got to meet the requirements of a restaurant, which used to be done by the health department, now done by Department of Agriculture. So you're well acquainted with that. So those are the three kinds of permits and establishments. The one that's been referred to here is the state liquor license requires more stringent type of restaurant requirements than do you as far as issuing a permit. I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, I'm trying to better understand it. I mean, every visual I can see from El Tequila from all their social media, it looks like a performance venue and dance hall that serves alcohol. That is like an event venue, like Mill and Mine would have a concert and they would sell alcohol. And
well, the state law and your beer permit law says that if you're going to serve food or you're a restaurant, you can stay open till 3 a.m. That's both under the state law and it's under your beer permit law if they're a restaurant. That helps.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a follow-up question, Mr. Walker. You said you've been with the Sheriff Department 29 years?
I've been a police officer for 29 years. I've been with the Sheriff's Office 22 years. I was 10 years with the city.
Okay, and how long have you been in this division of working with the beer permit violations?
I was assigned to the Environmental Crimes Unit. I actually started it. It was a brand new unit that started right at November of 2022.
Okay, so
Or I'm sorry, 2021. Sorry, 2021.
so close to 2 years.
Yes.
Okay. And so you've been in this department 2 years. How many cases of beer violations have you worked?
Beer violations?
Uh-huh.
This is my first one. I don't work with the beer board
Okay.
or with that's Lieutenant Lawson.
Okay, so this is your first one that you're testifying about?
Yes.
Okay. And another question on in regards to whether or not they're serving food. Do you have any proof that they're only serving 50% of their revenue is for meals, or is that just your summary?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're saying you made a statement on the report that you get that they're serving between 10 and 12 a.m. and that they do not make 50% of their gross revenue from serving meals. Do you have any proof to that, or is that your speculation?
Well, ma'am, I apply common sense to that. The limited hours, and they're only open 2 nights a week. If you can't serve that much food take an order, serve it, and you prepare it and serve it in 5 hours in order to make 50% of your gross income from all the liquor sales and beer sales.
Do you know what their gross income was during that time period?
No, ma'am, but there's no food being served. There's nothing on the tables.
Okay, and you're basing that upon the video or the pictures?
Yeah, there are pictures from their website, yes.
Mr. Ed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the reports that we have in front of us that you read to us, I don't know if I missed it, but I don't see any selling to minors of beer.
That is correct. We don't have an underage Hispanic male or female in our employee or even associated with us that we could send in undercover, and it's there's just no way for us to get an undercover buy-in there.
So you're saying that the sheriff's department has not attempted to do an underage purchase like it does at the other establishments that we.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you.
Again, Lieutenant Lawson runs that division. I don't.
But to your knowledge, there has been no report of underage consumption.
No.
Thank you.
Commissioner Daly?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Commissioner Lee's, your experience, can you go through the experience of what you have as far as your titles as bomb gang? You're not only experienced, you say you are the environmental officer, but you're more than that. So just for the record, your experience can show in this investigation about the other things that you have to do. I served 10 years as a task force officer with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, where I investigated domestic and international terrorism cases at the federal level and international level for any weapons of mass destruction cases. I've been the primary gang investigator for the Knox County Sheriff's Office for the last 18 years. I've testified as an expert witness as a gang identification expert in 62 trials. I've also testified as a bomb disposal expert on 2 occasions, a fatal accident investigator on 2 occasions, and a narcotics investigator expert on 2 occasions. I've testified in Clinton and also in down in Ray County on a gang case as a expert witness on gang identification. I've testified in federal court 3 times as an expert witness in gang identification. I've done fraud and forgery investigations. I was assigned to the fraud and forgery unit for a while. I was also assigned to the PREA unit, which is the prison rape eradication unit out at our jail for 3 years. So I'm pretty much a fatal accident investigator. I've done every kind of investigation federally, internationally, and locally that you can possibly do in 29 years.
Seeing no other microphones down. I feel like what I'm hearing from you is that it doesn't matter whether they have a beer license or not. People are still going in there and getting drunk.
That's what the reports indicate. Yes, ma'am. That's an opinion based on reports. Yes.
I understand. Okay. Are there any other questions?
One other thing, technicality, Lieutenant Walker, these reports that you have submitted to the board and copies to counsel for El Tequila, were they created in the ordinary course and scope of the business of the sheriff's office?
Yes, that's right.
And were they done? And were they done per the sheriff's department's policies.
Yes,
That's all in,
I retrieved every report out of our system.
okay. Counsel?
Thank you, Mr. Law Director. Mr. Walker, let me ask you a couple of things, and let's just start chronologically and probably with the most important question. You've never personally been in the El Tequila Bar and Grill, have you?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. When did you go in there?
I went in, now let's see, back in, well, the night of the shooting, I was actually in the parking lot.
Okay.
The one back in February, the
Shooting was May 7th. 20.
yeah, the May 7th one I was there. The February one where they were doing the burnouts. I was just happened to be out on patrol that day, so I went over and watched the officers do their thing on that.
Right.
And
But that didn't involve you physically being in El Tequila on that occasion, did it?
I'm sorry.
With the burnouts?
Yeah.
Did that involve you physically being in El Tequila or just on the premises of the parking lot that is situated outside of El Tequila?
Okay, I've been actually inside the building 3 times.
Okay. So you've been physically inside the building, but what you've related with regards to these photographs, that's just merely your assumptions that you have basically testified here to with regards to the selling of food and alcohol, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So relative to physically being in the building and seeing the bar operated, were you in there during a period of time this bar and grill was being operated?
Just I've seen the pictures on their own internet page.
Okay, but what I'm saying is like during a night, as what you've indicated with regards to what I believe you said, 16 reports or over a 16-month period of time, have you ever personally gone into El Tequila during one of these nights when this stuff is allegedly going on?
No.
Okay. In relative to the reports, let's sort of start taking them sort of one by one. You referenced the report November 1st, 2022, bold at 23:45, and we'll all agree that's 11:45 p.m., correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and then down below that, you have a number of reports. I'm talking about you have a summary sheet, and then you have reports that are listed sort of in descending order. And then the last document that you, of course, provided was the rules of the Tennessee Alcohol Beverage Commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so if we look at that, you indicate that November 1st, 2022, now correct me if I am wrong, will you look at the report that is the top report? And is the report date, would it be, what is the significance of the report date being October 2nd, 2022, and the actual summary having it is November 1st, 2022? Do you see where I'm talking about the report date at the top of the incident report?
The 10-1 and then the 10-2.
Yes, sir.
That's just, I don't know. The officer made the report. That's the report number that the dispatch gave.
Right. Well, what I'm getting to is this top report. I'm looking at the number 22-100-10056.
Correct.
Is that the number that corresponds to the November 1st report?
Yes.
Okay. But the report date's October 2nd, 2022, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. So relative to this, would the summary be correct or would the report be the more accurate document?
Well, with the incident happening at 11:45, the time clock clicks over at midnight. So that 15-minute time period, the 911 call came in on one day, and the officer actually did a report once he got there and figured out what was going on after
Right.
the midnight hour.
But October 2nd, that would have been flipped over 29 days, right?
November.
I mean, does it not say October 2nd, 2022?
No,
In the report?
10-01 is November 1st, and 10-02 is November 2nd.
Okay. 10-0 is,
10 is October.
I mean, I didn't know if it was, I'm not,
I don't.
isn't
Yeah.
like in the way we count months?
Yes.
January's 1, February's 2?
That was probably my mistake. Yeah.
Okay,
I put
so it's
November instead of
October 2nd is what we're talking about. We're not talking about November, correct?
Yep.
All right, let's look at this document a little bit more.
Yep.
We've got information pertaining to who's involved relative to it in this first document ending, and I'm just going to use the last numbers, 5-6, which we now agree is on October 2nd of 22,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
You'll flip to the summary page relative to that. Do you have any indication relative to who called law enforcement there
relative to the incident that occurred relative to the threats made to El Tequila personnel?
No, the report just says officers were dispatched to 7002 Maryville Pike
Right.
in reference to a disturbance.
Right. So that very well, you don't have any knowledge. That could have just as well have been El Tequila personnel calling saying, hey, law enforcement tasked with protecting us, come out here, do your job. We don't know.
The 911 sheet would say who did that.
Okay. But that's not part of this document.
It's not part of the police report. No, that's why I
Right.
added the 911 call.
Okay. So we've got the 911 calls, and we should be looking for October 2nd, 2022 when we're examining those documents,
Yeah,
right?
October 1.
Well, the report date, remember, flips over to October 2nd, right?
Right, that's when the officer did the report.
Okay.
The 911 call.
So we should look at
2nd.
October 1st
Yeah.
relative to that.
Correct.
All right. Now, look with me again. You've got another report here on November 2nd, 2022 at 0103, 1 o'clock in the morning, basically, and documents another arrest for public intoxication and resisting arrest. And at the back of that, there's a summary relative to that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And concerning where these individuals are standing, they're standing in the middle of a parking lot, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they're not physically in El Tequila, right?
No.
Okay, and you personally don't know where they came from. You just know that basically they got arrested in the parking lot of El Tequila, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the report that ends in 6-1
Correct.
that you've referenced, okay? Again, November 2nd, 2022 at 3:04, will you look at the report that corresponds to that? And would you agree with me that it shows a date of October 22nd?
Yes.
Okay. So if we were to look at these reports, and we can look at them sequentially in order, at least from the way that it's written on the sheet, it would appear to a layperson just looking at it, if they don't go look at the actual reports, that all of these incidents occurred basically in just a few hour period of time, but that's not what the actual reports say, is it? Because remember, October 2nd, October 22nd, you'll agree with me, that's at least 20 days.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, the officer went on vacation and failed to do a report.
Okay. So the officer went on vacation, failed to do the report.
Correct.
Okay. So that being said, not only are you reporting then about an officer's information that he's put in this document that you're not personally aware of, you're just basically summarizing a report that an officer does 20 days late.
I only testified to what's documented.
Right. I understand that. And in that particular situation relative to it, that's a Sergeant Daniels in the summary part of that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And he's flagged down in the parking lot, and he comes to the parking lot, and this is a Mr. Juarez saying that he confronted the suspect owner relative to backed wages, and there was evidently some sort of a dispute, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. No police, if you will, arrest or anything occurs out of what we're talking about other than just these public intoxications.
Correct.
With the guys standing in the middle of the parking lot, correct?
And the resisting arrest, yeah.
Okay, well, I get it,
Yeah.
but the original auspice is you got drunks in the parking lot, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Would you be surprised that there are drunks in the parking lot down at the UT area on occasion around a ball game Saturday?
Not a surprise.
Okay. All right, so that being said, while drunks in a parking lot, they're not that uncommon in Tennessee, are they?
Not uncommon, but the reason we were sent there in the first place was a reported disturbance. There was a fight.
Do you know if there are more bars in the city or in the county?
Probably the
in
city.
Knox County? Right. So we would expect really, if we're looking at numbers, to see much more activity with regards to in the actual municipal confines of the city of Knoxville as opposed to Knox County, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so when we're dealing with city type situations, that's not this body that we're dealing with, is it? Or is it? You tell me.
I'm not understanding.
Well, if we're dealing with stuff that occurs in the city, who do we deal with?
The city police?
Okay. But you're reporting what's occurring in the county, right?
Correct.
Okay. And let's look here too at the next report that's done. Okay?
Yep.
That's the report ended in 1/8, October 2nd, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Okay? And relative to this information on it, it actually has some documents at the back of it that aren't on the other documents, particularly the use of force, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And again, when we're talking here, it reports on October 1st, 2022 and October 2nd, 2022. Makes it look like 2 days, but what we're doing is it's just where the clock flips over, correct?
Yeah.
So it's really just one incident.
One big event, yes.
Okay. And relative to that, there were 5 arrests made. They were all for public intoxication, disorderly conduct, correct?
Correct.
And these people had been ejected from the establishment by the bouncers, correct?
To my understanding, yes.
Okay. What are bouncers supposed to do? Are they supposed to let them fight in the bar, hold them down? What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to put them out and call the law enforcement personnel?
Correct.
Okay, so they did what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
Okay. So that being said, any report about, the idea to shove them out in the parking lot, that's what they're supposed to do to get them out of, if you will, the group of people, right?
Yes.
Okay. And relative to the use of force, that's again a guy standing in the middle of the parking lot, right? Miguel Andres.
Yes.
All right. So none of these arrests actually occur in the bar, so to speak, correct?
No.
And October 14th, you got it reported as November 14th.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're again, just so we don't look like we've just got this conflagration of all this stuff happening right at the beginning of November, this is actually, that November 14th should be October, right?
Correct.
And in fact, all of these dates would be appropriately corrected as October, and in fact, some of them are October 22nd, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
I'm not beating you up on it. You
yeah,
did
no,
a good
no,
job.
I get it.
You summarized.
I should have read it closer.
I got you. And in that particular case, basically, who called law enforcement to come when a drunk former employee tried to show up to work?
Mr. Little.
Oh, Mr. Who?
Little.
Okay. So that being said, this gentleman here, right, the head of
Yes.
security.
Yes.
So just like if somebody drunk showed up at any other business, you call law enforcement and say, I've got a drunk, I want him to go to jail. That doesn't mean he necessarily, you don't know where he got drunk, you just know what he says, correct?
That was Mr. Little's statement, apparently. That's
Said that he'd gotten drunk.
Owens arrived at work tipsy. Mr. Little told Mr. Owens he could not work in that condition. Mr. Owens then started drinking more at the bar and became upset. Mr. Owens then hit a bottle of water out of Mr. Little's hand, and the water went on to another employee right before he got up in Mr. Little's face. Mr. Little then punched Mr. Owen in the face.
So the bouncer took whatever actions were necessary, and there was again no arrest made other than someone for public intoxication. Right.
That's correct. Both of them refused to prosecute at that point.
Okay. And then if we take a look at the next report, let's just go down the next report, the February 25th, 2023. That's the donuts in the parking lot, right? Report ending in
Yes.
27.
Yeah, 1827.
Okay.
Yes.
And again, just like what you were asked by members of the board relative to the age of these individuals, only thing we've got is just speculation that from appearance or anything else that they appear to be underage. And we don't know where they were drinking. We just know that they were doing donuts in the parking lot of El Tequila, right?
The adult had a driver's license. The suspected juvenile stated that he was 17 or 18. He didn't know. Again, language barrier, and he had no ID on him.
Okay.
So they were both cited driving without a license. The adult did say he had been drinking inside the bar and that there were a lot of drunk people inside.
Okay.
That's
The same adult that got arrested in the parking lot for doing donuts for the
Correct.
juvenile, right?
correct.
Okay. So that being said, you certainly wouldn't vouch for his credibility, would you? Don't know him?
No, I don't personally know.
Okay. So that being said, you can't speak as to his veracity or his worthiness to be believed under oath, such that that wouldn't even meet the threshold requirement for the issuance of a search warrant because you don't know him, do you?
No, I don't.
Relative to the incident then in May of 2023, that's the two gals fighting or two females, sorry, I shouldn't say gals. Two females fighting in the bar, right?
What was the report number on that one? Oh,
The one.
0665.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, there's no charges, correct?
Yeah, no, the officers responded and did a report. And at that point, the female that had been assaulted refused to press charges.
Okay.
And she was the one that called 911.
Okay. So relative to what we're looking at least with regards to these, we've either got El Tequila doing what the bouncer's supposed to do and the employees are supposed to do, calling for law enforcement assistance, or we got, for the most part, people that are intoxicated that we don't know where they got intoxicated in the parking lot, right?
I have no personal knowledge where they've been drinking, yes.
Okay. And concerning this most recent, the June 25th, 2023,
1557?
Yeah.
Okay.
and that's where they called about folks, if they would, sort of in their community caretaker role and said there are some intoxicated people and they're refusing to leave, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, security called and then told the officers that they were refusing to leave.
And then when the officers asked, what's the last sentence? Not the very last about this did occur in Knox County, Tennessee. The officer asked how they were getting alcohol in the bar, and security stated they did not know because they didn't go inside. So, at least from the report, it's unclear whether or not they were ever inside the bar at El Tequila. They
No.
were just asked to leave.
No, the inference is the security didn't go inside. If you read
Well,
the report,
it-
it's officers asked how were they getting alcohol in the bar, and security stated they did not know because they did not go inside. As the security officer
They don't
did.
go inside. So it's a report by parking lot security. So this is
Yeah.
a situation where they've now got not only security inside the club, but they've got people outside the club providing security, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it's an additional layer of security. And so when these individuals encountered an intoxicated person, it appears that they did what a good citizen's supposed to do and they call law enforcement, correct?
Well, yeah, they called because they were causing a problem.
I got it, but I mean, we're not supposed, we're a civilized society. We're
Correct.
not supposed to take things in our own hand, manhandle somebody, pop them, do whatever,
Right.
tune their banjo. We're supposed to call the police, right?
Correct.
Okay. And relative to this alleged rape, this May 7th, 2023
Yeah.
alleged rape,
Yes.
the mom called, not the child, correct?
The child cannot report a felony. That has to be done by an adult.
I understand, but from what we're talking about, this is not a report from the child. This is a report for the mother on behalf of the child, correct?
The mom called 911. The child was interviewed by the sex crimes detective.
Right. And interviewed what, some 2 to 3 weeks later?
My understanding, yes.
Okay. So that being said, just from a pure prosecutable standpoint, again, you don't know this child, no speaking as the veracity of this
No.
child. And certainly with regards to whether or not it occurred or didn't occur, there's simply just as much proof that it didn't occur as what she
Yes.
says as it did occur, right?
That's why I testified that we had zero evidence.
Right.
The report was made. The officer, went and asked El Tequila for the videotape. The only concern I had was when they got up here and testified during the first hearing where their license was going to be suspended. They said they had no idea that it even occurred,
Do you know who the officer spoke with at El Tequila?
said the owner.
Okay. But that being said, do you know whether or not the officer knew it was the owner or to whom he spoke, just other than what the officer said?
He put it on his report. Hang on just a second. He put it out. He didn't put it in his notes. He put it in the actual report, and I left the report out because it involves a juvenile. I apologize. He did say, I believe it was the young lady that was a co-owner.
Right.
It had a female name.
But again, that's what the officer said.
Yes.
And that being said, do we just take the officer's word simply because he wears a badge and has authority? Or that being said, you've certainly been a law enforcement officer. You've seen officers be mistaken before, haven't you?
Sure.
All right. You've seen officers, unfortunately, it happens. They've misrepresented things before,
Absolutely.
haven't they?
Yeah.
Right? Just as likely that a member of the general public did, correct?
I'm sorry.
As far as everybody lies, don't they?
Sure.
At some point in
Yeah,
time?
at some point. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. All right. And again, no charges ever came out of that.
No, there was no forensic evidence to bring in charges.
And relative to loud music complaints, I mean, that's just something that there's no citations ever been issued to El Tequila relative to loud music, just reports.
The reason they can't do citations is you have to have a sound meter, and we just don't have one. We just recently got one when I did the Smash Mouth bar.
Okay. Well, since we've done that, with regards to that, have there been any sound violations at
No.
El Tequila? Okay. So we don't have any criminal charges arising out of it. Relative to these documents that are labeled event search, is this basically what you're talking about with regards to, this is a 911 printout?
Yeah, there's 911 call sheet.
Okay. So we go through that and we look at it, and if we look at these, we can tell in fairly short order, basically, who has actually made the report. And in this particular case, on the lead one up there, it says advised her daughter, of course, blacked out the child's
Yes.
name, happened approximately a month ago at Tequila, does not know the subject, right?
Yeah, she didn't know the subject. Yeah.
Okay, and that's what that deals with, correct?
Correct.
And the next ones deal with 20 loud music complaints,
Correct.
okay? And then relative to the 12 criminal complaints, is this information that you've interdelineated on these reports, and I know Law Director Buick asked you about that with regards to that, that's something you've interdelineated on the reports. That's not written in the normal course and scope.
No, that's me. That's
That's your thoughts.
Correct.
Relative to this,
Yeah.
with regards to the handwriting, particularly where we're talking about the 12 criminal complaints. And with regards to that, now we've learned about some public intoxication,
Correct.
resisting arrest,
Correct.
and then we learned about the situation where this gentleman, Mr. Little, cooperated completely with law enforcement, and there was a conviction secured against the gentleman that supposedly discharged a firearm in the air in the parking lot,
Correct.
correct? And that's what you would expect a citizen to do if they call law enforcement, is to cooperate, particularly in his position.
Absolutely.
And again, the next event search, these are fire alarms, right?
Yes.
Okay. Don't know who pulled them, don't know what happened, don't know if there was a fire.
No, there was no fire. There were false alarms.
Okay. And relative to the last one here, when, just so that I'm reading that, what does your writing say there? 2 something complaints? I can't read what it says.
Safety.
Safety complaints, okay? And relative to that, there's a caller's name on here, Salvador, and then Ani. This is a complaint about too many people in there. And then the other one, I think the remarks, open line of Mexican music playing, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that being said, these come in at February 27th, 2022, and then July 10th, 2022. So 5 months apart, give or take, 4.5. And the caller was complaining about loud Mexican music.
Well, that and there's overcrowding.
Okay. But that being said, that's generally handled by the fire marshal, is it not?
Well, when it goes to 911, because of the late night, the fire marshal's not working, police get called, so we handle all
Right.
that stuff.
And there were no charges made, no citations issued on either of those alleged safety complaints. And we've already talked about the other with regards to that. And just so that we're clear, you don't work for ABC, nor have
No.
you ever, in your infinite experience, worked for ABC.
No.
And you would defer to ABC, and by that, Alcohol Beverage Commission, with regards to the interpretation and enforcement of their own rules and laws,
Yes.
correct? All right. And particularly with regards to that, you're aware that if the state ABC, and I'm not talking about now, but at the beginning issues a, if you will, alcohol permit,
Correct.
then it's left as just basically a ministerial task for the beer board then to sua sponte. They have to issue the beer permit. You aware of that?
No.
And again, relative to the stuff that you've attached here concerning the foodstuffs and things of that nature, you don't have any knowledge of that from your own personal experience?
No,
As far
no,
as
I've never.
food in there. And in the 16 months that this has been going on, allegedly, with regards to that, there have been, of course, as you were asked earlier, no underage sales, correct?
No.
All right. And relative to this, what's been reported as a spate of criminal conduct, none of it's actually been criminal conduct in which any employee or anybody with regards to El Tequila has received a citation or has been charged, have they?
No, because
Okay.
every time we get there, it's in the parking lot.
Well, I got it. But what I'm saying is, with regards to when we look at the definitions, and we're going to have to do that relative to criminal activity, there's nobody in El Tequila been charged with anything, have they?
No, not criminally. No.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Lieutenant Walker. I
No, that's
apologize.
fine. I'm not hung up on titles. So that's,
Are there any rebuttal questions from the board?
Mr. Daly?
Thank you. Just clarification, Mr. Jones. Are you saying that if they have a Tennessee alcohol beverage license, that this board can never refuse them a beer license?
I didn't say that.
That's what it sounded like. That's why I'm going to.
So that I understand and that I interpret. And again, with regards to it, it is my understanding that if the state ABC goes ahead and issues an alcohol permit, I'm talking at an outset, if this was a brand new business and they issue an ABC permit, that then the beer permit then goes hand in hand with regards to that, the ability of the board to refuse at that point in time if the state certified. Now, that may or may not be correct, but that is my understanding with regards to the actual beer permit. The actual beer permit, albeit with regards to the City of Knoxville Code, the actual authority for municipalities and stuff to do that, that's found in Tennessee Code 575108, and there are certain parameters and requirements associated with it. So with regards to this particular situation, what I was merely pointing out is that Lieutenant Walker was asked to interpret ABC rules and regulations. And we, at the last hearing, if you'll recall, we had an individual, and those questions would be better posited to an individual with the state ABC as opposed to either Lieutenant Walker or myself's or Law Director Buick's interpretation with regards to that. I do not hold myself out as an expert with regards to the interpretation of state ABC law, but upon information and belief and experience, I believe that's the circumstance that we find ourselves in with regards to this, and it may be better reserved, Mr. Daly, for argument relative to the ability to revoke. Basically, there has to be a due process determination as far as dealing with a revocation. In this point in time, you know, there are certain requirements that permanent revocation may only be applied when there have been at least 2 violations within a 12-month period. And in this particular case, we've had this ongoing thing, but we've had this hearing with regards to that. So I don't think you've met the prerequisites to begin with. So that's something we'll argue about, but that's where we're at.
You keep mentioning the city of Knoxville. This is in the county. It's nothing to do with the city.
I mentioned it simply because of the fact that there, in my information and belief, much more facilities serving alcohol than encounter these type situations located within the municipal confines as opposed. I get the city is in the county, and theoretically the county could go do that, but we see situations on a more regular basis dealing with bars located within the city than what we see with regards to the sheriff's department. And I think Lieutenant Walker conceded that because you just simply have more bars located in the city than you do in the county. And I'm not talking about general restaurants, the Connors, chop houses, and places of that nature. I'm whatever kind of rides that line between bar and grill and bar.
Thank you, sir. El Tequila, in my opinion, is creating a nuisance. In that shopping center, you've got Arby's, Papa John's, Nail Salon, D20 Vape, Hammers, Ace Hardware, the Corn Laundromat, Dollar General, and Goodwill. None of them are open after midnight for sure. And the statement was made about shoving the people out of the bar because they were drunk or they were fighting. They were purchasing the liquor and the beer inside. Were they overserved? I don't know what the law is about.
I'm not going to argue with you, Commissioner Daly, with regards to that. But what you're doing is you're addressing your concerns to me, and I'm not on trial here.
I know
this is the gentleman that you're asking.
This is
questions.
This is to Lieutenant Walker.
Okay, well, I understand, but you're addressing them to me.
The seller, in my opinion, has oversold. That's why they're drunk. It's why they push them out in the bar. If El Tequila was not in that parking lot, Lieutenant Walker, this is an opinion. This is my opinion, your opinion. If El Tequila was not in that parking lot, would we have this issue? No. Thank you.
Lieutenant Walker, if Modelo didn't make beer, would we see people drinking Modelo beer? I mean, it's a question. It's ridiculous by its very definition. That being said, you can't directly correlate any actual violations of the law by El Tequila, can you?
They've never been arrested or charged with anything.
Okay. And that being said, then again, we've got these preconceived assumptions where we've got a quasi-legal body sitting here that's to exercise due process. Is that what you understand it to be?
My understanding is, and this is again my opinion, the beer board is here to determine if pulling the beer permit would alleviate the issues they're having at that particular location.
You think maybe it ought to be a good idea that there ought to be due process requirements? Have you ever been to a single court hearing in your experience? You testified about everything that you've attended, both in federal court, Clinton here, in which the aggrieved is not permitted subpoena power?
I don't know if they're issued subpoenas or not, or allowed to issue. I have no idea.
Well, that being said, what my question was not with regards to this. I've asked, have you ever attended a court hearing where the aggrieved does not even have the ability to issue a subpoena?
A state court of law, no.
All right. If I may, Mr. Jay, and then I will get back to you. Attorneys, I suppose, could argue all day whether this is considered a due process hearing for our quasi-legal board. I personally, as a layperson, cannot answer that. I do know that the reason we are here is not to prove criminal activity. We are here to make a decision with the evidence that's been presented against El Tequila, whether they deter the health, the safety, or the welfare of our community. So we've birdwalked a little bit on a lot of other subjects, what might be legal or not legal. But again, our role is to look at this specific area that I have read. Mr. J, did you have some comment? That's what I said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a question for I was just looking at our municipal code, our county charter and municipal code as it relates to beer and alcoholic beverages, which is under Chapter 4. Looking up the section that the council referenced, this is section, excuse me, I want to make sure this is section 4.8, penalties punitive.
Subsection H.
G was what I had read at the beginning.
Section 4-8. And
G.
I want to just, hold on, I want to find the line here. It says the county commission shall not, this is section A, county commission shall not pursuant to TCA 575608 revoke or suspend the permit of a responsible vendor for a clerk's illegal sale of beer to a minor if the vendor and clerk making the sale have complied with the requirements of TCA as a responsible vendor, et cetera, et cetera. That's not what we're addressing today because there haven't been any underage sales, correct?
We're not a responsible vendor either. That's a different category. Go to subsection G.
B, the okay.
No, G. As
G.
in
D, excuse me.
G.
G.
Sorry.
Gopher.
Revocation, suspension, or imposition of civil penalty may be for any violation of any provision of article, chapter, or whenever it is satisfactorily appear that the premises of any person, firm, or corporation holding a beer permit under this article are being maintained and operated in such a manner as to be detrimental to the public health, safety, or morals. The board is, in considering the suspension or revocation of a permit, shall consider repeated violations of any ordinance or state law involving prohibited sexual contact on the premises and adult-oriented establishment. Okay, so that's the governing entity in which we're considering. But how do we reconcile that with also the section, and if you can help me find it, that it talks about permanent, here it is under A, permanent revocation of beer permits issued responsible. What is a responsible vendor versus this establishment? Because it does say has to commit at least 2 violations within a 12-month period.
The responsible vendor is a separate category that virtually nobody goes through the state process to become what's called a responsible vendor. And nobody goes through it, or that I've ever, in my years on the board, I've never seen it. And so the law is a little different with regards to a, quote, responsible vendor under that category.
Okay, so El Tequila is not considered a responsible vendor
Correct.
under the state, so that is not a provision that we can count on.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And as you read, and I wanted to clarify for the board, it does, unlike maybe the city's ordinance, it doesn't require a criminal offense. It's what you said, anything that is maintained that affects the morals or
Yeah, it says maintained and operated in such a manner as to be detrimental to the public health, safety, or morals.
Are there any more questions or comments? Mr. Booth is the next step looking for a motion.
No, not yet. No, there's several things.
We get put on proof.
No, he's,
Take it 10 minutes.
I mean, we're not.
if Lieutenant Walker is through, he can sit down. He may want to be recalled by the opposing party, but we need Kathy Daly to enter into the record the minutes of the meetings in which they've been brought up just as the record. If you could do that, and I've given copies of those minutes to council. So we need to get that officially in the record.
All right. Madam Clerk, if you would go ahead and do that, and then we may take a brief. Is that all right? If we take a recess before we've done Any objection?
I have no objection.
If I could, I'd like to apologize to the board. I didn't mean to put a document in there with the wrong date. I had less than an hour to type that up before when I was told that you needed it. So that was my mistake, and I apologize.
Just for clarity of the record, Commissioner Hill, could we put obviously over my objection, but the documentation that Lieutenant Walker filed is obviously part of the record because it's required, Otherwise, we're going to be referencing documents that are not going to be part of the record at some point in a later time. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm going to let Ms. Daly read the actions of the Beer Board.
Ask her what? No. She doesn't have to read them. No, she doesn't even have to do that. She just puts it into the record. Council has copies of those minutes, and those minutes are in the record.
Council has copies of those records.
On behalf of El Tequila, I'm not objecting to the minutes as far as being assimilated into the record. So if that, for expediency, saves us from reading them, I have no question with regards to the accuracy, with regards to the preparation of these, and they've been furnished to us.
All right, thank you. So they are considered part of the record. And we're going to take a 8-minute break. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this back to order. And I understand, Mr. Jones, you're satisfied with the reading of the record for the minutes?
I have no objection to
All
the
right.
submission of the minutes of the court.
Thank you.
I apologize. The board wants to mark them as however you want to mark them. I certainly acknowledge them.
Great.
If there's nothing else, counsel, you can call your witnesses and put on your case.
Thank you. Call Stephanie Castaneda. She was just here. I think she just stepped out of the room. I'm going to have you stand at the lectern, ma'am. If you would, just for the benefit of the board, would you state your full name and spell it, just so that everybody has it, so it's recorded appropriately?
Okay. Gloria Castaneda, and my last name is spelled Castaneda. My first name is Gloria.
And Ms. Castaneda, would you explain to the board what your position is with regards to the El Tequila Bar and Grill?
Supervisor.
All right, and how long have you been in such position?
About close to a little bit over 2 years.
All right. And that being said, you've been in this hearing and you've heard certain statements made particularly, and I'm going to try to address them as best I can in order relative to investigation and a summary provided by Lieutenant Walker with the Knox County Sheriff's Office. Have you ever been approached relative to, and if so, by the Sheriff's Office relative to any investigation and request to see tapes? I understand they're not actual tape, but videos relative to events at El Tequila.
Yes, in 2 events, or 1 event that I know of. In the second one, I didn't get the reason behind looking at the footage.
All right. Did anybody tell you anything about when they came to look at footage about there being a rape or anything of that nature?
No, sir.
All right. And relative to the state of cooperation of El Tequila, when an inquiry was made by law enforcement, did you attempt to comply with that inquiry and tell the members of the board the results associated with it?
Yes, sir. The first time that I got the call, they asked for a specific time for us to meet. I met up with them. I showed them the footage, the specific date, but it was past 2 weeks, so we couldn't actually go back to that specific date. I did ask, while they were whispering to each other, what was the reason behind it. They didn't answer me.
So you were the party that was actually inquired of relative to video footage And even as we sit here today, other than hearing what you've heard with regards to allegations of a rape, are you aware of any allegations of a rape?
Not a rape,
Are you
no.
aware of anything occurring or a sexual assault on the premises?
No.
All right. And what is the policy with regards to El Tequila, obviously concerning serving alcohol to minors? What is done to prevent that from happening?
It starts from the beginning with security. We are strict on checking IDs and bartenders as well. If they're not 100% confident of the person that is asking for a drink, they ask for their identifications as well. So we're always checking IDs, no matter if they have they've already been through the door or not. Zero tolerance.
We had previously provided a packet of information to the beer board in part of the hearing that we had the last time, in which we had a number of attachments. Did you assist my office in the preparation of this document with the photographs and information relative to the insurance?
Yes.
Okay. And was that information accurate at the time that it was prepared and submitted to the beer board?
Yes, sir.
All right. And in particular, there's been discussion with regards to an ABC permit. And that being said, we've also had the concession by Lieutenant Walker, obviously, that he didn't work for the ABC, nor does he have one. That being said, you as the supervisor there at El Tequila Bar and Grill, would you explain what type of an ABC permit you have and how that permit has changed as permitted by the state of Tennessee, particularly with regards to the requirements of food service?
At the beginning, we did have a liquor license that there was a amount, a percentage that we had to show of food. We did get with the ABC board and get our license switched over to where we're still selling food with the alcohol and with the beer, but we're not required to show a percentage of the food being sold.
And that being said, that was approved by the state of Tennessee, and
Correct.
that is the, if you will, ABC permit that you're operating under currently. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
All right. In relative to the circumstances, what have you instructed your bouncers and your head of security, Mr. Little, to do with regards to eliminating or ameliorating the situation with, if you will, misbehavior there at El Tequila? Tell the members of the board the steps that you've taken and continue to take.
We have zero tolerance of violence or any type of language in there. Doesn't matter what the occasion is. They know, Miss AJ knows to take them outside, have a word with them, and after that, they're not allowed back in.
Relative to situations in which law enforcement have been called, have you been there when law enforcement has been called?
I have, I think, in 1 or 2 occasions.
All right. And have you instructed your personnel under your supervision to cooperate with law enforcement?
Correct.
Nothing further. You may ask. Does the board have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Do you, Mr. Walker spoke about pictures of someone coming out with a baby stroller. Are you aware of that happening?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you explain to this board?
Yeah, that was a family event that we tried to do. But I am very specific on certain time points where we know kids underage are not supposed to be there. And I'm very strict with security. And they know when it comes closer to that point, I don't want any more kids in the building. But that was a family event that usually starts really early throughout the day.
Okay, so what time was that event?
I think it started between 6 or 5 in the afternoon.
And it was, when were the children supposed to be out?
They need to be out before 11.
Okay. So to your knowledge, there was none there after
Correct.
11 o'clock?
Not that I saw, yes.
I have a question. What hours do you usually work there?
I'm there Friday from 11 to 4. Then I go back in at around 5 or 4:55 until 2:50. And that's for Saturday and Sunday. We recently started opening limited times on Sundays, and then I'm back there on Monday from 11 to 4, pitching to 5.
All right. So during the weekends when a lot of the problems
Yes, ma'am.
are, you are also there.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other? Mr. Schoonmaker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you previously, with the alcohol beverage control, had a restaurant license which required you to have 50% or more of food sales in correlation to liquor sales. When did you surrender that license and switch over to a limited service or a limited service restaurant license?
I don't recall on the specific day, but I believe a little bit over 2 years, or closer to 2 years.
Okay, so you've been operating under the limited service restaurant license, and is that current and up to date?
Yes.
Okay. It's also stated in the guidelines that all of your servers have to go through and be through the alcohol beverage server training. Are all your employees current in that?
All of them, yes, who are permanent. I do have a couple that are new, but they have 30 days to get it, to obtain.
So under that permit process, they're trained also to make sure that if they're serving an individual that appears intoxicated, they're not supposed to continue serving that individual.
Correct.
Okay.
They know the
But
limit.
yet we've heard testimony that your employees have pushed intoxicated persons out of the restaurant onto the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
So does the management of El Tequila instruct their servers to continue to serve intoxicated people until it's the point of it's very obvious and they need to be pushed out into the...
No, they know when is the cutoff.
Okay. Let's see. I think that's all. Thank you.
I see no other questions.
Just follow up relative to the question asked with regards to the cutoff in individuals. We've heard testimony that principally dealt with intoxicated people in the parking lot. But that being said, what is the cutoff point and what is El Tequila doing on a proactive basis with regards to preventing anyone from becoming intoxicated within the confines of El Tequila?
We do push our menu, our food menu. I know that usually helps with the volume of drinks. But other than that, if you see a person going sideways or not talking correctly, you know that that's the time for cutoff. Or even before then. I mean, sometimes even the face expressions.
Nothing further.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under your limited service restaurant license, how many times in the last 2 years has alcohol beverage control cited your restaurant?
None until the day of the shooting. But that was not, had nothing to do with us in our serving.
So they cited you for what?
Apparently for the issue that happened in the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This may be a question for both of you. I'm looking at the incident report, ends in 118 on 10/2/22. I don't know if this is the same day you previously were talking about with the underage, with the baby strollers but I'm looking at the report from the officer, and help me if I'm not finding the time, but about halfway through the paragraph, it says, I myself counted 4 baby strollers being pushed from within the bar at the close of business. And the close of business on the 2nd would be, that what day of the week was the 2nd?
Daily, if you look, it's actually on the top right next to the date. It actually has the time listed as 21:38, which I believe Mr. Walker clarified it's 9:38.
Okay, but that's at the close. The report is filed on but that doesn't mean the incident. So could you help me? I also see down below. Can you help me help me try to narrow in? When I see at the close of business, that makes me think closer to 3 a.m., not 9 p.m. Do we have any indication of what the officer is referring to, or do you remember this particular
Family
day?
events don't last to 3 a.m. We always try to keep them start early so we can close early. Now, before 11, all those kids are not allowed inside the building. So if they stand around in the parking lot or they were outside with their parents, that's out of our control.
But that's not what the report says. The report says, I observed 4 strollers coming from inside the building at the close of business. So on October 2nd, which was a Sunday, what time was the close of business?
I don't remember what. ¿Qué hora son ese día? It was around 1 a.m. when we closed the event.
Do you have any other additional information? You'll have to use the microphone, sir.
I can clarify based on the report.
Okay, can you use the microphone?
Oh, sorry. The initial report, when officers were called to the scene, was at 23:45. That's 11:45 in the evening. That was before officers arrived, so the officer couldn't have observed the children being pushed out until after that time. Exactly what time after that, I have no indication.
So
All I can
somewhere
tell you
between
is that-
11:45 p.m. and 1 a.m. is the closing time on that Sunday.
Well, I guess I would articulate the same objection because what you're pointing out is the obvious problem with regards to basically utilizing police reports because the individuals aren't there subject to cross-examination. So what we're doing is we're speculating with regards to when this happened.
I'm referring though to her answer that family events are closed well prior to the evening time or late evening. Yet our report says that almost near closing time, 4 strollers came out. So there seems to be a conflict between when the officer says he saw 4 strollers come out and you saying it comes out at 9. I'm not asking to say who it is, who's right or who's wrong. There's an obvious conflict. So I don't think it's as easy as saying our families always rush out, get pushed out at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. because clearly we have a report in the contrary. So I just wanted to clarify the timeline.
Commissioner Frazier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is that on? In relation to the same report ending 118, just to clarify, Director Buick, we are here to rule if this establishment deters the health, safety, and well-being or morals of the community, correct?
That's correct. That's a proper reading of the statute
Okay.
or the ordinance.
Okay. Question, as a supervisor, if you were a supervisor of, or do you have children?
No.
Okay. If you were a supervisor of any establishment and this report was read to you, multiple incidents, public intoxication, total of 5 arrests, fights and assaults, physical force to effect the arrest officers were forced to engage. Due to number of incidents in this location of severely intoxicated individuals and officers being involved in physical altercations at this location, officers could not effectively address all incidents observed. Also, due to the officers to respond to other active incidents in the area, multiple children under the age and very small children exiting the bar, numerous incidents involving over-serving patrons were evident as they exited the bar with assistance from others, unable to walk or stand. Crowds confronted officers as they exited and challenged officers in an attempt to instigate confrontations with the officers. Present severely outnumbered officers observed dragging, pulling, and pushing unruly individuals from inside the bar. Officers were able to leave this location. More reports of disturbances were requiring officers to return. Crash with injuries that was forced to be held responded by the Tennessee Highway Patrol. Overserved while at the business. Both parties involved in the crash had just left the bar. So my question is, if this was read to you and you had no affiliation with this establishment, would you feel that that establishment is a detriment to the health, safety, well-being, or morals of a community?
Well, I guess I would object to that because you're asking her for an emotion relative to her being an individual in a supervisory capacity. And what you're doing is, once again, you're assuming and you're reading from a document that by its very definition is hearsay and is unsubstantiated at best and is basically a
I
gross
have to disagree.
exaggeration.
I don't believe that it's hearsay. This was actually reported by Officer
It's by
Jason Daniels.
definition hearsay.
It was
It is
reported by Officer
definition.
Jason
Mr. Bute,
Daniels,
is
according,
it-
excuse
is
me,
it
I'm
hearsay?
speaking, sir. Thank you. This was reported by an officer per regulations by Knox County Sheriff's Office through their policy and procedures. This
It
is
is
what they do.
hearsay by definition. It is a statement made out of a court or proceeding for the purpose of proving the truth of the matter of the statement therein made. Is it hearsay or is it not, Mr. Bute?
What I said at the beginning was hearsay was admissible in administrative hearings. Whether you call it hearsay or not hearsay, it doesn't matter. You ask a lot of questions which were objectionable. Let her ask the question and see if your client can answer it.
She asked a question about an individual's emotion or feelings with regards to something, which is an improper question to ask under anybody's interpretation.
Okay,
She's
then I'll
asked a
redirect.
question, she's entitled to get an answer.
I'll redirect my question. Lieutenant Walker, in your experience, would you feel that establishment where incidents of this nature occurs would be detrimental to the health, safety, and public well-being of a community?
In my opinion, yes, that's why we opened the case and that's why we've documented it for the last year.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't know if it was wrestling. Should they tag, since we've got basically a witness that's being examined, and we then did that? Because, you know, like in the wrestling ring, we tag when we go in and out of the ring. I just kind of curious.
I've been instructed that when parties are asking questions to not interfere, to let everyone have their say. Is that correct, Mr. Booth?
This is an administrative hearing. A lot of leeway, nobody objected. I didn't object because highly objectionable questions from counsel. He's doing his job. He's doing the job the way he's supposed to do it. Questions should be answered. I mean, if you don't have an answer, you don't know, just say it. But no, we've given a lot of leeway in these administrative hearings to get everything out, whether it's hearsay or not hearsay or coming back and recalling a witness. The idea is to get everything out in the open, one way or the other.
Are there any more questions? Mr. Schoonmaker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, is the owner or owners of El Tequila present here for this hearing today? Because we've not been identified that the owners that have the beer license are even present in the building.
I believe they
Yes, they're here.
are, and I'm speculating.
Could you
will
point them out to
call
us
on
of who
them?
the owners are? Okay. And that is,
Leopoldo Castaneda.
okay. And so he's the sole owner.
No, he has a business partner as well. But she's not present. She actually has surgery, so she couldn't attend.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Call the owner, Polo Castaneda. And sir, would you state your full name? And would you spell it for the record, just so that we make
Sure.
sure we get it correctly?
My name is Leopoldo Castañeda Reyes. I'm the owner of Tequila Bar and Grill. My first name is Leopoldo Castañeda, Castaneda.
Thank you, sir.
You represent that you're the owner of the bar. Have you ever been approached by law enforcement and informed that there was any type of a sexual assault on these premises?
No,
Have you attempted to cooperate to the extent that you can with regards to any investigations conducted by law enforcement?
yes, I did,
And have you
yes.
instructed your staff to likewise cooperate relative to those type investigations?
Yes, every time when this happen, I got my daughter, she's in charge with everything. And a lot of things that we're talking about over here, I don't even know what is going on. Until I came over here and I hear all these things, I don't know what happened to it.
You never got a citation, right? Like
No.
no one came to you from the county and said you're cited for a criminal offense or you're cited for a violation. You just got summoned to appear before this board, correct?
Exactly, yes. Everything is new to me over here.
And you obviously employed myself and our firm to represent you, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And to the extent that's possible, what steps has your business taken to make sure that underage individuals aren't served and that folks aren't overserved?
Well, like I said, I mean, like my daughter said, first of all, we start with the security. We start with him. They go inside, even the bartender, which I got my bartender over here too. Before they serve any drink, they ask him for the ID again. If they see, someone of them is a little bit drunk already, they're not going to get served no more. That's why, there's a lot of issues being happening in there, I understand it, because we refuse to serve them, and they want more. So that's why I got my security, she's telling you know what, we cannot serve them no more because you guys already drunk. You guys need to leave or stay outside. And on the top of that, we got some food over there, and we offer them so they can come down. We offer them water, bottled waters, so they can come down. We never let these people go. We call an Uber for them to drive. What I try to do is, try to make my customers be as safe. It's all I want for them to be as safe, and all I need is business for me. I mean, I got a family to support too. So all these things that I hear over here is new to me. So my daughter is just in charge of this. She's the one knows more than I do because I have another business to run. I have a Italian restaurant and a Mexican restaurant. So I cannot be, in three business on the same time. All I want to do is just make a little bit living, which I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. So when this happened about you guys, they denied my beer license. I mean, it's kind of killing my business. And we don't even know why. I don't know why you guys taken away from us. I mean, we try to be working with my customers. We try for them to be safe. When they come to us and ask them for help, we provide the help. You see, I just don't know what else to do over here.
Questions?
I actually have a couple. How much time do you spend at your establishment?
On my establishment, I know for sure I had to be there for sure Saturday. Well, Friday from 5 to close, which is about, 12. And then my daughter, she's taking over. She closed, 3 o'clock. Saturday all day. Monday from 11 to 5 p.m.
Okay. You made the statement a couple of times that you didn't know about all of this. You didn't understand.
I actually don't. I don't know what is going on over here.
We have where on December 19th of 2022, you were asked to come and explain.
Yes, I came because, I came. You're right about that.
And then you showed up on January 23rd of 2023.
And once again, I don't know what was that about until I came over here.
So you've known, in fairness though, you've known since December 19th of 2022 that there was a problem.
Yeah. And we try to come over here so we can correct this.
Thank you. Mr. J?
This may be a question for you or for the supervising manager. How many fights have you had inside the premises? amongst your patrons in the last year?
On the last year, there was only one. When there was a shooting.
Would you have the same answer? One fight in a year?
Yes, because once we see an argument that wants to.
You're gonna have to come up to the podium. We can't.
That's okay.
Yes, I do agree with his answer.
You were gonna explain further?
Yes, so I do agree with his answer because I do have security team everywhere throughout the building, so they know if they see that something's about to happen, they're going to stop it immediately. So we don't get anything inside the bar out of hand at all.
So if they move that outside, which you guys have stated if there's going to be an incident, then you move everybody outside. Do you hold any responsibility for that once it leaves the door?
Our team are still outside at the door supervising, but it doesn't get out of hand until they're like way down the parking lot. That's not our responsibility after that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Jones?
Just briefly, just following up, Gloria, relative to, I'm gonna step up there. Relative to security, you now have security not only within the barn, but you've hired outside private security for parking, correct? And did you endeavor to hire the Knox County Sheriff's Department and/or another law enforcement agencies to provide security?
Yes.
You went through the application process, and were you turned down by them?
Yes.
And so you now, out of your pocket, hire private duty security, and that information was what we had placed in the June 20th packet.
Correct.
I have a question then.
Mr. Jones?
I guess I'm confused. If once they're outside the door and in the parking lot, you don't have any responsibility over the things, why would you add extra security? Why wouldn't you just call law enforcement?
Because safety is our first priority, inside or outside.
You have to speak in the microphone. I can't hear.
Safety is our priority, inside or outside. And to be able to get the situation under control and be able to fix this situation that we don't even know what's coming from, I decided to put in more investment in getting more security. And that will be controlling the outside now.
Do you all, do you feel any sense of responsibility for patrons that are coming to your establishment and drinking, in some cases maybe to excess, and then spilling problems out into the community?
We don't spill them out. I mean, we help.
You do spill them out. You push them out into the community.
We don't physically push them out. We take them out, obviously, talking to them, but we never shove them, push them, or anything out the building.
Okay, but
Once we're
that's not
outside,
the question though,
right, I'm getting to the answer.
Okay.
Once they're outside, then we talk to the person, we try to fix the situation, we hydrate them, we try to provide them food, we try to ask them for, to see if we can arrange some type of transportation to their wherever they're staying, but we never just push them out and let them deal with it. We never do that.
Okay, well, back to the question. Is there any responsibility of your business to the patrons that come to your business that then spills out into the community? Or do you feel any responsibility at all for things that happen out in the parking lot and out in the community with people potentially shooting guns off or doing donuts or fighting or anything else? They're not coming to the parking lot without you.
Right. I mean, but we don't control their actions. Okay? I mean, do I control your actions after you leave the facility? I can't tell you, don't do this and do that. Even though I've told you multiple times, don't go home drunk, drive or drunk or whatever, you're still probably going to get in your car, you're going to leave. I can't control those actions.
I do.
Mr. Studebaker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. Hopefully my last question. Ms. Castanella, do you remember an incident that's been referenced in this report that happened 60 days ago? The report is 1557, where on the Knox County Sheriff's body cam, your security people identified possible underage customers that were I guess, getting intoxicated and then were asked to leave because he says you don't even let underage people in. So, but you stated apparently that, and security stated that you asked them to leave because they were possibly underage drinking in your establishment.
I never.
And that was 60 days ago.
Right. I never actually spoke to an officer about that. So that was actually security from outside. Now, I didn't say that I don't let underage people in. I just say that they verified their IDs, and if they're underage, we just don't sell them alcohol. And then whoever is of age, we put them a different type of color. Once they get to the bar, we verify their identifications again. Now, that group of people, if I'm not mistaken, they got mad at us because we wouldn't sell drinks to them. So they caused a whole issue, and then we escort them out.
Okay. And then as a requirement under your limited service restaurant license issued by the state of Tennessee, you are required to submit a safety and security plan that provides for public safety and must be approved by the Alcohol Beverage Commission. Have you complied with that?
As of right now, no. Not at the moment, but we're working on it.
Okay, but you've had the license for 2 years, but you've not complied with the regulation that says that the business must submit a security plan that adequately provides for public safety and must be approved by the commission, meaning the Alcohol Beverage Commission. So you've had your license for 2 years, but not fulfilled the requirements of that license.
Correct, so I just got notification of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Oster?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask, what is your typical process if you see somebody who has been overserved? What is your process with that? You stop serving them and then you ask them to leave, or how does that process work? Walk me through that. Whoever wants to answer.
He servido más y aparte de eso nos ofrecemos comida y nos sacamos ahí sentados hasta que ellos se
So we do the cutoff. We show them the menu it was for them to choose from the menu to provide food for them. I bring over bottles of water. I have a security team that stays with them at all time to make sure they don't get hurt or something else happens. But we're always with the person, hydrating them, providing them food until the alcohol has run down.
Okay. So I'm under the impression, and maybe I'm not understanding this, but when we saw you guys the last time that you were here, and Mr. Jones wanted to have this hearing, in my mind, that is due process. For the owners of the business to tell us that you don't know why you're here, I don't think that that's correct, in my opinion. I have not seen, I've sat on the commission for a year in September, and I have not seen any businesses in Knox County as many times as I've seen you guys. So that to me is a huge concern, and I do believe that it is a detriment. I get that you don't want to have them fighting in your establishment, but you're pushing them out into the parking lot, and you know that there's a problem. And I know that you all said that you worked on security and that kind of stuff, and that's great, but there is still a core problem at this place. And, I'm not there. I don't know. You all know. You see it. You know the atmosphere. And it's a real concern to me to see a business this many times in front of the beer board. It just really concerns me.
Mr. Daly?
One question. Do you let your customers bring their own beverages in?
No.
No.
Are there any other questions of either of these folks? Mr. Jones?
My please.
Did you have anyone else?
I do. The inside security, A.J. Little.
That
Would you state your name, please? Spell it.
Antoine Little, Antwain Little.
All right. And despite your name, you are of sizable stature, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And how tall are you?
I'm 6'4".
And how much do you weigh?
347.
And in that capacity, are you employed as the inside security and over that with regards to El Tequila Bar and Grill?
Yes, sir.
And concerns have been expressed relative to quote unquote pushing folks in the parking lot, things of that nature. Of course, we heard Lieutenant Walker say that that's where they need to go when we're having a fight or disturbance or something of that nature. So that being said, what is the policy with regards to any type of an altercation, two patrons? In this case, we had two ladies getting a fight in El Tequila. What happens? What are you supposed to do?
I don't really think that we use the term of pushing them out. I don't know where that comes from. We just escort them out. That's all we do. We escort them out. The term of pushing them out, I mean, that's like cliche right there, you know what I'm saying? We talked to them. Since the last time I was here, I implicated more security guards, you know. We got every aspect of the bar crowded, with security. We got the bathroom, the VIP, all that, you know, even the bank. So, by pushing them out, I think we just if it's an altercation, they really come and get me for the altercation. And because I really know a lot of them in there, and they just get a little chip. I like to have fun. They just like to have fun. That's it. But sometimes the fun go too far, and I escort them out. And when I escort them out, I talk to them, and the security guard outside cut the bed off their arm, and we tell them have a nice day, come back next week, etc., and then they'll come back next week and apologize to them.
So you have security inside, and then you have separate security. You now hire private contractors outside, licensed and bonded by the state of Tennessee, correct?
Yes.
When I say you've hired, actually maintained by El Tequila Bar and Grill. And so we're talking about this outside security. And do you remember an incident, there was a question asked about June 25th of 2023 about these underage folks in the bar? With that being said, what do you recall about these folks being upset because the bar wouldn't serve them alcohol?
Actually, it really wasn't the underage kids, it was the adults. They was a little tipsy, and the bartender cut them off. So one of the security guards was at the edge of the bar, and he kept trying to get the security attention, the bartender, and bartender kept trying to get the security attention, and we finally got the attention, he kept pointing like this. So they had contacted me, and I went over there, and I found out what was going on. It wasn't the kids, it was the adults.
So there were kids with the adults, and the adults were showing that.
Right. The kids wasn't drinking a lot. They were sober. Actually, the kids really, when we got them outside, the kids really calmed the parents down and tell them to come on, go on. Because the outside security guard was like, I'm going to call the police, And I said, well, we don't have to call the police. Let's see if we can get them to the car. And I said, can you get your mother and father to the car? He's like, well, son, they got me talking, and, it took them a while, but they let me into the car. So it really wasn't the kids, it was the adults.
And relative to the delineation between drinkers and non-drinkers, what do you put on their wrist or on their body?
Well, we put green bands on our dog wrist, and we mark the hand with X's real big. And then we put red bands on the people that can't drink in. We get we get people in there coming there with some have IDs, but some of them don't have IDs. But we know they're adults and they don't drink at all. It ain't really been a problem in the bar. It ain't really been a problem. Of course, we're gonna have some problems outside. Of course, I can understand. I can understand where you're coming from, and that's a respect thing. And I understand y'all decision what y'all got to make, but it's a lot of bars and clubs and stuff going to have problems. It's going to. We might have a little bit more, we might have a little bit less, but we're going to have problems. But we trying our hardest. I swear, we trying our hardest to get this together. It's hard, but we try. Every time you come in here, and when we leave, they call me, and we go to the club, and we have a meeting, and they tell me, AJ, you need to tighten up security, or you need to do this. So they get on me about it. So I have to do what I gotta do to tighten it up a little bit better, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna take the full responsibility because that's my job, you know? I have to protect them and the people that's coming in the bar, you know? And when we see something messy, we don't play no game. We just immediately try to get rid of it because you got disturbance right here and they acting crazy. You gonna have a disturbance right here because they gonna cut the lights on. I'm gonna cut the lights on and it says over with. I mean, I might get chewed out, but I'm gonna cut the lights on and say the club over with. And then you got this crowd right here don't want the club to be over with because this crowd right here made it bad. So I try to talk to the crowd that's fruity and disrespectful and try to put them outside. So, you know.
What have you done personally relative to cooperation of law enforcement, and particularly relative to this individual that shot a firearm way out in the parking lot?
I mean, I came out at the last minute, but I seen him shoot the firearm in the air, and everybody ducking and dodging, and I don't know if y'all see the video, I'm running towards him while he's shooting in the air, and I'm running towards him yelling at him. I'm yelling at him, and I'm running towards him, and I'm telling people to duck, duck, duck. So when I got close to him, he had to fire the gun, and he put it down, and I was cussing him out. I don't know if he was understanding me, but I was getting on him. I don't know who called the police, but when the police came, I think it was the young lady that was recording, she kept telling the police, he right there, he right there. So the police went straight over there, and as the police was going over there, I was walking towards with the police, at the police had them at gunpoint. And then the police asked me, did I see everything? I told them, yes, I did.
Did you cooperate and show up as a student?
Yes, I went to court and all that.
Nothing further.
Mr. Little, thank you.
So thank you.
You got outside security?
Yes, sir.
What is their responsibility? What are they supposed to do?
They're supposed to maintain the crowd outside. We got armed security. So they're supposed to maintain the crowd outside. Everything that I do inside, they do outside. If they need help, they'll come and get me. And if I feel like I need some people from the outside to come out, the inside to come outside to help maintain the crowd, that's what I do.
Yeah. If their altercation inside, it goes to the outside, do your security outside try to stop it, or they just go back, let them go at it?
Yeah. No, we don't let it go. We let the security guard outside handle it because they're professionals. So if they need any help, they'll come and get me. And if I feel like I need the security inside to come outside, then I implicate them outside to help them out.
You know, it's a privilege for them to come to that parking lot.
Right.
Does your security tell them to leave, get off the parking lot?
Do my security?
Back?
No, my security.
You're outside security.
I don't know how they handle it outside. I mean, they don't handle it too bad. You know what I'm saying? When I come outside, they end up leaving or they end up talking to them. 9 times out of 10, if we got a Rudy drunk in there with some family members, and the family members don't want to leave. So we try to talk them into putting a people in a car or to sleep it off or something, but they'll never do it. So I end up getting in contact with Stephanie, so she end up getting food, water, and they end up calming down while they on the sidewalk with the security. And 9 times out of 10, when we come outside at the end of the night, they done became best friends.
Help me understand this.
Yes.
They can't bring their own alcohol, so they're not drunk when they go in that building.
I didn't say that. They do be drunk before they get there, or tipsy. Now I told the security outside not to let the people that's tipsy or drunk, if they eyeball it to see if they a little tipsy when they come in. And most of the time, most of them be a little tipsy coming there sometimes, and the security don't let them in. So that's when they call me outside to handle it. Because like I told them, if you got a problem outside, try not to use force. Call me first. Come and get me first. Let me see if I can do it. Because like I said, I've been there for so long, I know most of them. And most of them, they really nice. They just want to have fun. It's just they get a little tipsy before they get there, and they take it to another level. But 9 times out of 10, everything's okay sometimes.
So when they get in the room, the bartenders are serving them, they get more drunk.
It just depends. Bartenders know how to eyeball that too now. They know how to eyeball it. I understand where you're coming from. But 9 times out of 10, a bartender know how to eyeball when a person tipsy. You got a person laying on the bar, their head down, or a person just standing up like this.
bartender don't know how to serve them. And like I said, I implicated new things, so I got 2 securities at the bar. I got 1 security right here, 1 security right here. Because sometimes you might have a person that can drink, might buy 2 drinks, and he might take that drink to a person that can't drink. So I got security watching them. Yeah. So when security watching them, they automatically contact me, and I go there and I end up taking the cup from them. I end up putting them out, or I end up taking the cup from them and talking to them. And I don't see no more at the end of the night after that. Now that's why my security been doing it.
Well, it don't sound like the bartenders were doing their job like they said they were. If they would quit serving, you wouldn't have had any fights. You wouldn't have to be pushing anybody out the door. Some reason, for somehow, it's they don't bring their own beer in there or alcohol or whatever. Yeah. So it's all served in there. They're tipsy, they get even drunker, or they get drunk from there. And then when I elbow somebody and they don't like it, they elbow me back and we start this little confrontation. Then that's when you get involved.
But that goes to the point of what I said, that you might have somebody buying 2 drinks. You might have somebody buying 2 drinks and might give it to somebody that's drunk. And once we cut them off, we don't know if they drinking or not, because sometimes the club be so crowded, we can't just watch everything. But when we do watch everything, we 9 times out of 10 catch them doing that. So you might have a person that can't drink at all, we cut them off, but you might have his friend or his family member buy 2 drinks, and then the security eyeball, like, okay, he bought 2 drinks with a drinking band on, where he taking the second drink to? Because he can't drink 2 of them. So security 9 times out of 10 watch him, see where he going to. So if he took it to somebody that got one of them bands on, they end up going over there to do something, talking to him, like, are you supposed to be drinking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's when we take the drinks from them from there. But we can't catch them all. But we catch most of them, but we can't catch them all. But I feel what you're coming from when you said that.
Yeah, well, it's got 2 different stories going there.
I mean,
but I really do appreciate you. I believe you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I believe that you want to do the right thing.
Right.
But you're in a situation to where it's in a bar, and you're right. There's trouble at every bar.
Right.
But this one seems to be a whole lot more.
Can I ask you something? Why do you think it's seen to be a whole lot more? Why do you think that?
Because you're here.
In your opinion.
Because you're here.
I mean,
we don't have any others. We don't have any others here.
You don't have any others here, or you just ain't focused on any others?
No, it's not us. That's
okay.
We're here.
So that okay.
Yeah, it comes from that.
Okay. I mean because I've been asked to work at several bars in Tennessee, and some of the bars I asked to work at, they didn't have more problems than we have. Waves shooting, carjackings, and we ain't had none of that. Underage drinking, we ain't had none of that. None of that at all. So I just want to know why. I'm not the owner. I'm just the head of security. I just want to know why we been targeted on that level, and we ain't done absolutely nothing half the bars done.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Ms. Frazier, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So you mentioned that the bartender's eyeball.
Yes.
And so would you say that that's being subjective, that you are using personal feelings to determine the intoxication of a person, which is similar to hearsay, is it not?
No, we didn't do some personal feelings.
But you say that you eyeball.
Yeah, we eyeball it. You can.
And eyeballing means that you are being subjective, using personal feelings to determine the intoxication of a person, correct?
But, let me answer that. Okay. At the end of the day, I feel you shut me from when you say that, but you know who's doing what or who's feeling some type of way by looking at them. Like, you might be at a party with your friend.
By looking at them.
Right, by looking at them, like, oh my girl, let's go.
Yeah.
She drunk, girl. We gotta get her up out of here.
Yeah.
So
you don't take a breathalyzer.
No, we don't take a breathalyzer. We just
so it is based on personal.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So is this space leased?
Is this what?
Is it leased? Is this a leased space? Have you alerted the building owner of the incidents happening outside of your establishment? I mean, they said yes, that they're aware. And then just a final comment, I find it really concerning, the lack of urgency. If you're required to provide a security plan as a part of your license, and you've had it for 2 years, to follow up on Commissioner Schoonmaker. I find it very concerning that with the history of the incidents, that you're really in no hurry and see no value in providing what they've asked of you to hold this license, especially with what we're hearing. That's just really concerning.
I understand. Thank you. I understand.
Any other witnesses, counsel?
No. Just argument.
Okay, then, if there are no other witnesses,
Okay, thanks.
if you will be very brief in argument, the proof is, everything's in front, so make your argument as brief as possible. We've been here a long time.
Certainly, and I don't want to belabor the point. I mean, what's been pointed out a couple of times and what you indicated particularly was the sections of the city code dealing with it, as well as the Tennessee code annotated, which is 57.5, 108, that actually gives you the statutory authority that you have and where you're at and what you're operating under. So that being said, there's requirements that are needed to have been met. They're not met by this. You know, when we talk about this, and I obviously said, hey, I will address that later, but I really don't have much of a choice because you're sitting in a quasi-judicial role. And, you know, whether or not it's admissible or not, we're talking about individuals' due process rights and the rights to cross-examine. You're like, well, gosh, Mr. Jones, go bring some folks in here relative to these reports. I can't do that because you know what? This board doesn't provide any subpoena power. Do you understand that? This young lady here reached out to basically address those concerns and deal with those particular concerns. So how are we provided due process? I don't even have a mechanism to subpoena officers in here. I don't have a mechanism to assimilate and put forth evidence relative to this. The statute says that there are supposed to be clearly articulated charges brought, whether or not they're civil charges, accusations, or whatever. You know, we certainly differ from the city with regards to the fact that there has to be the legal citations, if you will, the criminal citations. But in this, we have this just sort of ether, you know, health, morals, welfare sort of definition with no definitive guide as to what that constitutes. So that being said, I mean, I understand this is basically my Don Quixote Spanish conquistador thing because I honestly feel like I walked in here with everybody's mind already made up with regards to it. And when I point out certain things that are obvious, just like when we see problems in a police report, you can't cross-examine the document. And if you can't cross-examine the document, and you don't have any power to compel individuals here that actually had something to do with the preparation of the document, and they're not offered. Remember, y'all are the body that's acting to take the beer permit. Thus, you have the burden of proof. That's when you went first relative to this. And if you don't provide procedural due process, then you're depriving an individual basically of rights that they've got. And then when you read 57.5, 108, and you go to it, there has to be 2 violations within a 12-month period. We don't have it. We've got these just ether, hey, come on down here, let's talk about this, let's do that. We don't have any mechanism for even like a civil citation or anything of that nature. And so we talk about somebody not really knowing what's going on. It's basically because they get basically brought down here and for all intents and purposes, blindsided relative to it. And I mean, when you look at what happens with these beer board appeals, and I'm talking about look at it through the state of Tennessee and what the requirements are, the requirements relative to a court of record, the preparation of a record. It's not just some, hey, we're going to provide. I mean, there's no stenographic record. We can talk about a recordation relative to it, but it's not an official recordation, at least for purposes of what's required when you're going to deprive somebody of a substantive right. And so under all of those sets of circumstances, I understand for, you know, what I'm railing against, it's a foregone conclusion. The proof that's been put on is devoid. It has been rebutted. You've allowed police reports to sit here and come before you, and you're going to sit there and hang it. No charges, no charges. They've never been charged with a single criminal offense, nothing of that nature. There's allegations of a rape. You know, we all sort of shake and wobble about that. That's a certainly terrible crime if in fact it happened, but they cooperated with law enforcement. There's just simply nothing there. And you know, you may not like it. It may not be a business that you want to be in, but even our investigating authorities, they've never been in the business when it's operating. It's not.
I mean, it is just literally, it is kangarooish with regards to conducting a hearing in this manner. And you think about that. If that's your business and you're operating it, would you not want substantive due process? I have never heard of a single hearing in my entire life in which an individual is going to be deprived of a privilege and they don't even have the right to subpoena power. So under that set of circumstances, looking at 57.5.108 and the litany of case law, I get it. I might as well just bang my head against that wall. You're going to do what you're going to do, but you came in here with your minds made up, and there's not been any proof submitted that substantiates this. Somebody talking about somebody else writing a report about what somebody else told them. Okay? It's kind of like where we all go around the room and we whisper in each other's ear. There's a reason that that's not admissible. There's a reason that's not something that we rely upon. As the old saying back in the Wendy's days, where's the beef? The beef isn't here. And you can rail about it and we can talk about morality and everything of that nature, but it's not whether or not you like alcohol or you don't. It's not whether or not you like a bar or you don't. It's not whether or not we speculate about ABC rules or anything else. It's whether or not the burden's been met. And I'd submit to you it hasn't.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions?
Is there a closing statement from the Sheriff's Department, or is that?
No, I don't think we need a closing statement. Normally, that's where you got two attorneys, and I'm not representing you. I'm just trying to advise what the procedure is. I think you've got all the facts that you need.
I will say that I know that that you do not agree, Mr. Jones, and all I can tell you is what our legal counsel has in fact advised us, that hearsay is in fact something that is allowed, and there has been a lot of hearsay, if you will, with all these police reports. That is rather concerning, because it isn't just one or two; it's several. So that's a little hard to overlook. One of my biggest concerns has been that, and unless I misheard, I think I heard the owner stand up and say he doesn't know why, he doesn't understand why, this is going on and why he's here. And then I hear the supervisor stand up and say, well, she thinks, if I'm not misquoting you, that there's been maybe one fight. And then I hear the director of security stand up, who, God loves him, seems to be the only one tuned in and know that there are problems, and I clearly see that you are working very hard to try to remedy this. I just am not real sure how tuned in maybe management is to all of it, just from their own words today, and that's very concerning to me.
Madam Chair, I just have a quick.
Briefly,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
I just have a question for the law department. What are the actions that this board has before it? What are the options? And what happens if those options are taken? And then what is the appeal process or review process if the applicant or the license holder disagrees with that?
You can do a revocation or a suspension or a civil penalty if the permittee, if you rule against the permittee. Of course, if you rule for him, there's no problem. If you rule against the permittee, then he has a right to file a cert action in a chancery court. And a cert action is one in which the court looks at what was before it. They don't make a determination of who was right or who was wrong. It's just whether or not there was enough evidence to support the action that was taken by the body. So that's basically it. And by the way, there is just to clarify, there is a subpoena power. It's there in any time that a board or the body, it's in the charter of Knox County.
And if I understand a suspension, I understand civil penalty. If a revocation happens, is that permanent? Is that for a period of time? Is that our beer license are issued to a person that operates a business? So we've often seen that. Let me ask the first two questions, answer the first two questions before I ask the third one.
What were the?
What is there a period of, if it is, I understand suspension.
Oh, you can
in the sense
revoke, you can revoke it permanently or for a period of, well, a period of time would be
a suspension. Okay, so,
Yeah. And with regard to the second question, which you have seen, which is changed, the permit belongs to the permittee, an individual. But under our code, if there is a finding under the section we're talking about, then a new permittee cannot come in there for a period of 1 year.
1 year. Okay, so that was my question. And does any action of this board affect their state liquor license or their ability to sell food or operate a business in any other way besides beer?
No, they can still sell there, just like they've done when you suspended or their license for 60 days or whatever. They still can sell the liquor and serve the food.
Thank you.
All right. Before I turn it over to Commissioner Lee, one more time, our decision today is made with evidence presented against El Tequila that we feel is a detriment to the health, safety, or welfare of the community. Our options are to suspend a license, permanently revoke a license, or we can fine them up to $2,500. So hopefully with that clarification, I turn this over to District 7 Commissioner.
Well, first of all, I will have to say that it's hard to take my lawyer hat off because in the situation about these police reports, I totally agree with Mr. Jones. It's all hearsay. The due process, they are entitled to bring in witnesses and for us to talk about these officers that made these allegations. But on the other hand, I'm not elected by my constituents to be a lawyer. I'm elected as the commissioner. And this board can revoke the permit of any permittee who operates or allows his establishment to be operated in a disorderly manner. It shall be prima facie evidence that a permittee's establishment is being operated in a disorderly manner if disorderly conduct chronically occurs on the premises. And for that reason, I move upon the evidence submitted and the response of the beer permit holder of the business before us that the continued actions of the beer permit holder are being maintained, operated in such a manner as to be detrimental to the public health, welfare, and morals, and revoke on the beer permit of El Tequila Bar and Grill. That's my motion.
We have a motion on the floor by Lee, a second by Daly. Is there any more discussion? All right, I believe we'll take a roll call on this, beginning with District 2.
Commissioner Durrett. Commissioner Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Schoolmaker. Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Beeler. Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Jay. Commissioner Frazier.
The vote is 9 to support the revocation, so it does pass. Oh, I'm sorry, 8. And then that's the majority of the people that are here. So your beer permit is in fact permanently revoked. Do I have any other questions? Anything else to talk about before we adjourn? Thank you. We are adjourned.